You're listening to First Fossil. Because sometimes you simply need someone to help you take that first fossil.
Hello and welcome to First Fossil, a show where we learn together how to take that first fossil toward becoming the best versions of ourselves. My name is Candace Olushala, and I am back. Guys, I've been on a slight hiatus for a few weeks, a little bit over a few months, and all for good intentions because, drum roll please, I resigned from my 9-to-5. I'll probably do a video at some point on the reasons why, what happened, the walking through of my thought process, my prayers, everything that went into that decision. But I've basically spent the few months prepping and planning for this first fossil for me. I've been talking on this podcast for 60 episodes previous to this one, and I'm taking probably the realest first step that I've taken in quite some time. I know last year I took this fossil to start a podcast and get people used to how I speak, how I talk, what my humor is, how I process through life, and getting the opportunity to share other people's stories that can empower all of us to take better first fossils and other steps along the way. But this step is probably closest to the step I was actually trying to make last year. But last year, I'm not going to lie, I was scared. And I didn't know much about videography, audiography. I just knew GarageBand and how to press play, press pause. I knew how to press play, press pause, and then splice it up a little bit, see if it sounded all right, and then upload it. So I didn't have a knowledge of how to really podcast. So once I figured out a little thing or two, not a thing or three or four, just two, I realized I needed to delegate and everything. And in that delegation process, enlightenment came to me through people that came on board. And fast forward, I ended up putting in my resignation letter at my 9-to-5 as a full-time pharmacist, and I became full-time entrepreneur September 1st. So it was a huge step for me, and I've had tons of support in the process from friends, from family, and creating a website. I completely threw away the old website and designed a new one as a means to kind of tailor what I'm starting to do. It's not going to be the end all be all of who I am or what I want to bring into the world, but it's definitely a great first fossil for me. So you can still go to www.firstfossil.com or www.candaceolushala.com, and you end up at the same website, and you'll get to see that I am now a wholeness and freedom coach, as well as a connection coach. And so if you're looking to be coached by someone that can help you walk you to your wholeness and help you on your journey to finding your purpose and then stepping out into the world in the freedom to live out the purpose in your wholeness, come to me, talk to me, reach out to me, let's connect. And if you're looking for a connection coach, which is basically coaching you to make better connections in the world, to be in tune with who you are, so that way you can be in tune with the relationships around you, whether those are platonic, romantic, professional, and otherwise, just so you can have more confidence in who you are, what you have to bring to any dynamic of any relationship. I would love to coach you in that as well. So please reach out to me if you're looking to have a wholeness and freedom coach or a connection coach, and I would be absolutely thrilled to work with you. I already have a couple of clients and they have been so amazing and it's so fun. And I want to thank them for entrusting me to start. I'm growing in my process. I am learning. I have had coaches. I still have coaches. And so I'm growing in my ability to be a great coach as well. So thanks to those people, and hope to get a new client soon. I take up to 10 to 12 people max. So spots are filling up. Hit me up soon. All right. So without further ado, let's jump into today's topic. So today's topic is on a question that I've actually been posing to some of my coaching clients the past couple of weeks. And it's a question that I ended up asking myself towards the end of my wholeness and freedom journey that actually kicked me off into starting this podcast. And it was a question that I leaned into with very strong discomfort, because what I wanted to be the answer was something that I was afraid wasn't going to be true. So the question was, what is more important? What I feel or what I think? What is more important when it comes to how I see other people and situations? What I feel about those people or situations, or what I think about those people or situations? So for those of you who have either read the Bible, are Christians, or heard this in passing some way, shape, or form, there's a story. It's a parable, actually, that Jesus tells in Scripture. And it goes a little bit like this. There were two men, one who we called a foolish man, and one that we called a wise man. Both of these men built houses, and one had built his house on the beach, on the sand. The other one may have had a beachfront, but he built it on rock. Okay. So the one that is considered to be foolish, Jesus says, is the one that built his hand right on the beach, right on the sand. And the parable goes on to say that once that house was built, storms came, flash floods, hurricanes, you name it. The storms hit his home, and his house ended up becoming completely demolished, destroyed, like finito, did not exist. He had nowhere to lay his popo head except for the sand. Okay. Struggles. Now, the wise man, he had built his house on rock, and storms came, natural disasters, flash flood warnings, hurricanes, you name it, he experienced it. And the parable never talks about whether or not the wise man ended up with house damage. Maybe shingles fell off his house, windows broken. Doesn't say, but what it does say is that his house stayed planted, stayed firm on the foundation that it laid on. I was thinking about that story this past week when asking my clients about whether or not they think their feelings outweigh their thoughts, or if their thoughts outweigh their feelings, or if they are equally important. Now, my coaching clients, most of them said that they thought feelings trump thoughts. One of them said the opposite. He thought that your thoughts trumped your feelings. Surprisingly enough, the ones that said their feelings meant more are more empaths than anything else. And the ones that said, I think thoughts are more important, he was more analytical. So I said, let me see. Let me go out to where people I haven't talked to, some people that I have, let me post this on Instagram and find out what the people say. And so I post this on Instagram and asked the same question. And we had 55% of people say their thoughts meant more than their feelings. Some people private messaged me and said both are important. Some people said it depends. I wrestled with this last year. And in talking to my coaching clients, I shared with them what I came to realize. In asking that question of myself and of God, a new question came into my spirit. And the question was, what if there's something more important than both your feelings and your thoughts? I was slightly offended by that question. It's like, excuse me, as the empath that I am, I think my feelings are valid. I think my outlook on this life is valid. I think what I think a lot of times is fantastic, and what I feel is spot on. I don't know why anything would be greater than what is in my heart. Until I came across John 8:32 that says, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Now, how is it that I can be so strong in my feelings and still be wrong? How is it that I can be so solid in my thoughts and still be wrong? It's then that I realized that my feelings and my thoughts, not that they don't deserve to be valid or validated, but that the truth is where common ground and peace and strength and being rooted can happen. Through my journey with the pain that I dealt with growing up and trying to process through it, and my thoughts that followed my emotions, which led to my emotions following my thoughts, and then my thoughts, my emotions, and my emotions, my thoughts. And it was this cycle all the way up through most of my life, just trying to figure this out and validate everything I was feeling and thinking. And it was all pain driven, anger driven, irritation driven, fear driven. The sense of I wanted to be validated. And I realized it was coming from pride. It was coming from a space of pride that I did not want to carry. I think a lot of us do this, where we enter into a situation and someone might say something that triggers us. It triggers us in a way we can't handle. And our thoughts towards them might change. Our feelings towards them might change. And we will dig our heels in that. But there is solace when you know the truth behind the words. Not to say that what they said or did was good or bad, but it's where you can find a landing pad for everything that's making your emotions and thoughts race into a space of negativity. I was in a situation recently where I, as an empath, was in a conversation with another empath. And when two empaths try to have a little conversation, things don't always go as planned and even as desired. But it did not turn out very well in that conversation. I was irritated. The other person was irritated. We had to separate, go into our respective corners, step back, and it lingered. The feelings, the emotions, the thoughts were lingering. And I personally hated it because it was a situation where I've never been in this type of situation with that person before. And so my first feeling was fear that I had ruined something so solid, something that I cared so deeply about, which was a friendship. It broke my heart that I could have said anything to push someone away when all I wanted to do was draw them closer, to let them know that I hear you, I empathize with you, I'm in it with you, I support you, I love you. What I have to say might not be what you want to hear. And I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but I'm hoping that you hear what I'm trying to say through what I'm saying and know that I see greater in you. Well, that didn't happen. I messed that completely up. Wasn't interpreted well. My words were spoken in a time where I was still in my feelings. Yet I thought I had enough control of my thoughts to say it. And when you say things in person and your emotions are high or your thoughts towards that person are not that great in that moment, you say things that you either don't mean to say or you don't mean to say it in the way that it came out. But when you bring text message into it, tone of voice gets lost, feelings, thoughts can go in places they never needed to go in. And so I wrestled with that. I tried to process that. I was processing and assessing myself and trying to find where the solid rock was, the truth. Despite everything that was said, despite everything I was feeling, despite everything that I assumed and perceived the other person was feeling, what is the truth? What is the truth? So in the story, the parable of the foolish man who built his house on sand and the wise man who built his house on rock, we always talk about their foundations, the sand and the rock. But what we don't talk about are the storms. The storm is always less important in the story. And yet, to me, it's one of the greatest keys to recognizing what is more important, our feelings or our thoughts. The storms will tell you which one is more important. You see, I realized that when we stick our heels in sand, which our feelings and our thoughts are equally sand. Not that sand isn't important, not that sand isn't beautiful, not that sand isn't necessary, but to root and plant ourselves in sand, that's where, when storms hit, things go haywire. And yet, the rock is the truth. The truth will liberate you from any damage that the storms would have given you had you had planted yourself in your feelings or in your thoughts. And there's a fourth component to this. Those of you who are Christians know this a lot, and those of you who are not, you know this as your sixth sense, but discernment. Discernment can guide you to the truth. If you're not careful, it can cause your emotions and thoughts to go into very interesting spaces. But what the purpose of having discernment is to land you in truth. And sometimes that truth is not clearly known, but there's a sense of peace behind the discernment of not needing to even know the details, but knowing that you can rest there instead of just in your feelings and your thoughts. My friend responded to me in my text messages and said that they wanted to reiterate something they had told me in person and that they've been telling me for a number of times the last few months. Our friendship is not fragile. That was the truth I got to land on in the midst of my emotions, in the midst of my thoughts that were racing, waiting to hear back from them and make sure that we're good, because that's all I wanted to know. Are we good? Are we solid? And they beat me to it. Through their own thought process, even in being upset with me, they could cut through that emotion and say, but what I know is that our friendship is not fragile. That was our rock. That was our rock. And I appreciated them for saying that, because even though my emotions and thoughts had not caught up with that yet, I could hone in and remind myself that our friendship was not fragile. Sometimes there's a missing piece that we forget, and this can be an issue even in relationships, romantic relationships. I mean, imagine you and your significant other are irritated with each other. Maybe one is an empath and one is an analytic. Maybe you're both analytical. Maybe you're both empaths. Whatever you lean more toward, you're coming at it and you guys have upset each other. You say, oh, well, I think where I'm coming from is valid. And your significant other is saying, well, I think where I'm coming from is valid. But if you can put those things aside and go back to the space that I care and they care, so we can stand here and then branch out to assess our feelings and our thoughts together. When we've calmed down, thought about it, processed, breathed, and went in not approaching them as our enemy, but as our partner who stands on the rock that we care for one another. Now the storm doesn't have to destroy us. The storm can make us stronger. So which one is more important? Our feelings or our thoughts? I would say neither. I think they're equally important to address, to have a conversation about, to really think through. And at the same time, what keeps us grounded is when we can stand in truth, when we can stand in the facts, in the things that we can discern to be true. Assumptions, perception, what we see can often trigger our thoughts and our emotions to basically create something that's not there, that's not real, and even create a veil over our spirits, over our hearts, over our minds, to not fully see what is before us, or to fully dissect and digest the situation at hand. The truth is the pulling back of that veil. In fact, in my wholeness and freedom journey, the morning that I call my redemption morning last April 2020, it was a pulling back of a veil over a lie that had been over my life, over my heart, and taking over my thoughts since I was 4 years old. That was finally revealed to me. And when that veil was torn, I became livid, not gonna lie. I got really angry, but angry in a sense of peace, which sounds very strange. And let me unpack that a little bit. It was the sense of peace that I finally knew the truth. I was livid because I couldn't believe for how long. I could not believe how long I believed the lie. How long my emotions were attached and anchored in the lie. My thoughts were anchored in a lie that didn't hold any true weight. And yet I believed it did. My people, brothers, sisters, friends, listeners all over the world, hear me. Your feelings, we can sit in those together. Your thoughts, we can sit in those together. But at some point, we got to get up. We got to get up and we need to figure out what is the truth. And we need to anchor ourselves there. If we need discernment to figure out what that truth is, we got to ask for it. We got to seek it out. Because that'll break the chains of anything that's holding us back from having healthy interactions with people, or to discern or to know who we should be close to and who we shouldn't be close to. What situations are worth stepping into and which ones we should maybe step a little bit further back from. What we know and what we discern gives us safer guidelines to maneuver through the world. Our feelings and thoughts change. Our feelings and thoughts change a lot, and we live in a world that wants us to hold on to the fact that what we feel and what we think is automatically my truth. And my truth is important. Therefore, what you have to say, I reject it. What you think about it, I reject it. This is personal. And we ground ourselves, and we're encouraged to, that everyone has their truth. And there is some truth to that, because everyone has walked a story. Everyone has lived a life. Everyone has experienced something. But no one is walking in absolute truth. And relative truth is exactly that, relative. There is absolute truth out there. There are truths out there that, without a shadow of a doubt, we can't change them no matter how hard we try. And there's some things that are true based on the situation. And this is why having free will is so important, that we have the free will to make choices, make mistakes, learn, grow in the world that we live in. We might share the same planet, but we don't all share the same world. We learn from the worlds that we all walk in. And some of us find insight in our worlds that we can share with people in their world so they can have breakthroughs, chain breaking revelations that they've been seeking their whole life on their tiny personal planet. So I encourage you, if there's something that you're feeling strongly about, especially if it's negative, try to let it go. That's easier said than done, I know. Try to let it go and find the space where the truth can set you free. So you can breathe and enjoy life and walk in joy and peace and love and happiness. And if your thoughts are negative, whether they're negative towards yourself or other people, I encourage you to let it go. Because I guarantee there are lies in there somewhere. And even if there are absolute truths in there, it's not worth anchoring yourself in. Because you deserve peace. You deserve love. You deserve to live free. So let me know, what do you think about this concept of freedom in knowing the truth, or anchoring yourself in your thoughts or your feelings? How do you feel about that? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? And what do you know? What do you discern? Have you been in situations much like mine, where anchoring yourself in what you knew saved a relationship or rectified a situation? Let me know. I would love to hear from you. And I hope that you can have more honest conversations like me and my friend had to have. And that they result in knowing that those relationships are not as fragile as they seem in those scary moments. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and send me messages. I love to hear from you guys. I love to hear your thoughts and answer your questions as best as I can from my perspective and from my personal walk, as well as assessing the walks of other people and trying to piece things together. If you want to support the podcast or anything else that I'm doing, you can go to my website, www.firstbosso.com, and you can donate. You can become a patron at patreon.com/firstbosso. Thanks to my Patreons who have been my patrons. Thanks to my patrons who have been on this journey with me since last year. You guys have been awesome and encouraging. I appreciate you guys. And again, if you're looking for a coach or even a public speaker, because I do public speaking as well now in my business venture, reach out. Let's talk. And I would love to see if we make a great fit as coaching in a coaching relationship, or if you're looking someone to speak on anything such as wholeness and freedom, specific topics, reach out. Let me know. I would be honored. And with that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, week, month, and I will see you next week. I'll talk to you guys soon. I love you guys. Take care. Stay safe. The Rona is still out in these streets. Okay. Like she ain't playing. Now she coming fully loaded. The Delta is out here. The Mu is on its tail. I'm telling you guys, don't play with the Rona. If you're vaccinated, thank you. If you're not vaccinated, please do everything else you need to do to keep yourself safe and those around you safe. Please be considerate. This is not a political battle. This is a global health crisis, and the entire world is trying to fight this, or at least contain it, to live out our new normal. If you have questions about it, I'm your friendly pharmacist, so I will be glad to answer any questions I can regarding that as well. Until next time, take care. Love you guys. Bye.